Again, thank you all for joining this evening. So I had started the recording. So why don't we start with the first question we received was from Bob Mahoney. Bob has a Bugeye with drum brakes. And Bob, you want to tell us what you were experiencing and looking for some advice on? Bob, you're on mute. And again, if you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind putting your computer or your phone on mute, that would be best, so we minimize any background noise. But if Bob, can you tell us about what you were experiencing with your Bugeye and advice you may be looking for? Bob, we can't hear you. I see you're speaking, but we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Bob.
Is that any better?
Here you go. That's much better.
Oh, good. Okay. So the quick problem is it's a 59 Bugeye Sprite, and the brakes aren't happening. There's very little throw in the brake. It's about a 1 inch, 2 inch brake, and you really got to pound on to stop it, even at 20 miles an hour. So it clearly needs some TLC. And Pete, you know my level of mechanical skills, so this is probably a very simple solution, but I'm not very good at that. I'm much better at buying them than I am at fixing them.
But didn't you say, Bob, in your email that you checked the fluid? Your fluid was fine?
Fluid's fine,
Yep.
But just like a one inch throw on the brake, and then, but really, even you wouldn't drive it at 40 miles an hour because it just isn't stopping.
And what about your emergency brake? Does that work, Bob?
Oh, I didn't try that.
Okay, well, that's always a backup plan. I lost the brakes in my '66 Mustang once, and I had to drive 40 miles home, and I did it all with just the transmission and the emergency brake. So,
well, that's a good reminder, because I'm going to the shop tomorrow. I hope if I can get in there. So, but I'm interested in other people's thoughts. I'm not sure I can get into the shop.
Now, again, you have drum brakes all around, correct?
Yes.
Right. So. Anyone have thoughts for Bob as it relates to adjusting his drum brakes? And do you think that's probably what he's dealing with, where his fluid's fine?
Wait. Oh, sit for the wrong side here.
I'm sorry, does someone have a recommendation?
Have they been bled?
Yeah, do you have any air in the lines, Bob? Did you have to pump them?
Don't know. That's, it's probably, that's what it needs. They probably have to be bled.
Well, you can also adjust those brakes too. So you can, and so I suspect that maybe it's something you want to look at as well.
Okay.
I guess that would be the first thing, is to adjust the brakes. And if that doesn't work, you're going to have to take off the drums and see whether you've got shoes left. And, whether if you've got a high pedal, it's not likely that bleeding them is going to do a lot.
Okay.
My guess is you either got one brake pads or one rotor or one drums or both.
All right. So worn parts.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, obviously brake shoes are a wear item, Bob.
Sure.
And that's the reason they're adjustable, so that as the lining of those brake drums wear, you can adjust them out and get them tighter to the wheel. So the best way to do is to get the car, one wheel up in the air, and spin it and see if there's any friction, if you will. So there should be a little bit of friction on that. If it just turns freely, you don't hear anything there. You need to adjust those out. Yeah. Someone have something you want to add?
When is the last time they worked properly?
Before I put the car away for the winter.
And
nothing's
changed
until they weren't great then, but they were, adequate.
Maybe you got condensation in the drums, and you do have a shoe that's stuck somewhere. Goes back to taking things apart first. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so it'd be to be able to get those wheels up, a wheel at a time up in the air, Bob, and then be able to see and get those the drums off and see what those shoes look like.
Got it.
And then there are adjusters on the back side of those with where it spreads the shoes out
to a point. I mean, if the shoes are gone, you got to replace the shoes, right?
Absolutely. And again,
Yeah.
if you get down to the rivets, you got a problem because you're going to score the brake drum too.
But you're thinking that bleeding is probably not going to be the solution here.
I kind of agree with Rick. I don't think so. It sounds like your pedal's fine.
Interesting.
Pete, actually, the adjusters are on the front.
Oh, they are on those? Okay. Oh, maybe I'm thinking my 100.
They threw them a hole in the front of the drum.
Okay, my bad. Thank you. And yeah, you there's a device there where you can turn that to make it okay. But my 100's got them in the back. That's what I was thinking about, I guess.
Is this a job for a really skilled repair guy or just an average foreign car guy?
Well, I mean, drum brakes have been around for 50, yeah. Go ahead, Rick.
I said below average. I could do it.
Okay. Your standards for below average are different than mine, Rich.
Okay, so Bob, any other questions?
No, that's great. That's great. I'm going to cut my video because I'm the chef tonight, so I got to go back and forth to the kitchen, but I'll be watching. Thank you. Okay, well, send us some whatever you're creating there. Oh, unbelievable turkey meatballs. There you go. There's only 40 of us on the call, so you hope you cook a big batch of those meatballs. I would have bought a couple of more pounds. Thanks, Bob. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you all. So another question came in from Guy Gabrielson. Guy's got a BT7 that came with a hardtop, an original hardtop, and now he's looking to look for a convertible top and looking for head bows for a BT7. Again, if you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind putting your phone on mute, that would be great. We're getting some background noise there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Guy.
The thing is that I guess it's a general question. If a car came with an optional hardtop, which my heritage certificate says it did, and I do have an original hardtop with it, so it's probably the original one. Did they also send them with a convertible top and frame, or is that all you got? Or did they send it with a tonneau cover, which I use in the summer? Change of seasons, spring and fall, I put the hardtop on and I store it in the winter with the hardtop on. But what I'm looking for, if it came with the convertible top, with the soft top, I'm thinking it would be nice to have an old frame, then I buy the new top for it and so forth. It does not have it. It's probably out in San Francisco where the car was sold originally.
So Guy, I think BT7s came with convertible tops.
Yeah.
Okay, so it came with a convertible top, and then you also got a hardtop. I mean, how'd you get it home?
That's not important.
But so it came with both more than likely, right?
Yeah, but so with the BT7, just like with the BN4, you can fold that convertible top underneath there and have your hardtop on there. So they are, now with BJ8, you can't. If you have a BJ8 or a BJ7 with a hardtop, you cannot have the convertible top on there. But a BT7, a BN4, you can, and you would. So my BN4 had a convertible top. It would fold underneath. Now you can't have the tonneau cover and the hardtop on at the same time.
Right.
Those are separate, but
the snaps have to go. Yeah.
On the outside.
So then, so I would want the frame, an old frame, if somebody knows where to get one. But I also have the tonneau cover, and but I understand there are hoops that support it as well.
There's a bar that goes across there, sits right behind the seats, that holds the tonneau cover up in case there's rain and filters the rain off either side of that.
You go back, yeah. So I need one of those too, I guess.
You do. So does anyone know of a BT7 or a BN4 frame, top frame that someone may have that's looking to sell?
Yeah, mine's a Mark II, I don't know if they changed over, Pete, from Mark 1 to Mark 2 with the type of folding top.
I'm not sure. Does anyone know? But it is a BT7. You don't have a BJ7. You have a BT7.
No, BT7. Yeah,
right.
It's actually an early one, but 16239.
Okay.
November of 61 it was built.
Okay.
So
does anyone have a BT7 frame they're looking to sell? Hood frame, top frame?
Hey, Pete, I just got a upholstery sale flyer from Moss, and they have tops, and I think I saw frames for sale in the flyer. It would be new, it would be used, but I guess. But I just happened to see that. So if you get the Moss, if you get a Moss upholstery sale flyer in your mail, you might want to take a peek in there.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Peter? Bill used to keep on checking eBay.
Yeah. Actually, Pete sent me a top frame for a Mark 1. That was the last year it was designated for, according to the listing. But I know they changed styles pretty significantly. And
I don't think that, not from the Mark 1 to the Mark 2, I don't think.
Really?
Peter?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Bruce. Bruce Newcomb.
Bruce? Yeah.
I got a convertible top frame. I don't know what it's for. Okay, it might be for a 7 or a BJ8. I'm not sure, but if anybody's interested in it, I can research it.
Okay.
Also, I have a lot of other Healey pots that I want to sell.
Okay.
Some new and some used. Usable, used, and new.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the old stuff, I guess.
Okay.
Pardon me?
I'm most interested in the older stuff. You know, I got the old jack, and I'm trying to replace what's missing on the car. There are a few things. Got an old back seat.
Like I said, what model are you looking for?
It's a Mark 1 BT7.
A BT7.
You said it's a Mark 2 BT7.
I'm sorry, a Mark II. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a late 61. It was built. It's a tricarb, so it's okay. 62 technically.
So does that have the same configuration as the tricarb? Is 62?
I think those BT7 configurations are the same, whether it's a tricarb or a single or dual carb.
Oh, I'm saying there's the Tri 62, if I remember right, had the frame that you stored behind the seat.
Correct. Fellas, there's a top frame ID guide that's in the Moss Austin-Healey catalog, AHY 129. There's a whole ID guide, and it shows all the different frames for all the different models. And I see a couple here for BT7. So if you want to look at it to see what kind you have, it's pretty nicely done to show you the differences in the frames.
Okay.
In the Moss catalog?
Moss catalog, page A18 on the Austin-Healey 100, 106, 3000 catalog.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Daryl.
Great. I would be interested in that frame if it's appropriate. The other thing is the bar that supports the tonneau cover. I don't know.
They're around, Guy. I mean, you can find them. And again, I think eBay. Now, I have one. It was not an original Healey one, but I have one. It's made out of a copper tube, but it's squared off. If you're interested in that, Guy, it's 2-piece like the original ones were.
So you assemble it in a sleeve. It goes together.
Yep. That's the way they all did.
Oh, okay.
Those tonneau bars. Go ahead, Bob.
I don't think the BT7s came apart.
They didn't?
They were one solid bar all the way across.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Behind the seat, behind the rear seat. They'll lay in there if you're not using them, but they are at least the ones I've done for people are solid bars.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 2-piece.
Bars that they came apart.
I've got a Series 1 BT7 61, and it's a 2-piece thing that slides together.
Yours is 2-piece, okay.
That's Neil. Okay.
If it's 1 piece, I guess it's a very simple thing to make yourself. You get the shape right. It has those 2 conspicuous holes where the hardtop, the pins go. I don't know if that's on every car, but I guess that's where that frame must go.
So Neil, do you know where does that frame go in your car? Does it go into a post?
It goes into 2 holes just behind the door there on that little flat area.
Yeah.
I don't have a hard top, so I don't know where that goes, but there are 2 holes. They're about a ½ inch in diameter, maybe an inch and a half deep, an inch deep, something like that. And that's where both the top bows sit into, or the tonneau bar, because you obviously can't have both at the same time in the same hole.
Okay, so
they both fit in that hole, but not at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Guy, I'll send you and Bruce, because Bruce is the one that said he had a top frame. I'll get you guys contact information for each other.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. One last question while we're on tops. So I have the original hardtop, and she ain't pretty, but it works. It works fine. It has a crinkle paint finish. Somebody sprayed it, probably because the original gel coat or whatever was pretty bad.
They were fiberglass. Yeah.
Yeah. It obviously needs everything inside. Somebody spray painted the liner black. It's missing a panel on the quarter panel,
So we've got a guy in Gloucester, Guy, who does restorations of hardtops. Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I feel rich someday, I mean, I don't know what these things cost to restore. I've been told the tops are worth $4,000 or $5,000.
Properly restored. Yeah.
Properly restored.
But so his name's Al. I'll get you in contact with Al. He does restoration. He does absolutely gorgeous work on restorations of hardtop. He's in Gloucester, Mass.
Okay, great. I like Gloucester too.
Great.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, Pete. One question. You were talking before for the BG8. So one day I have a BG8, 1966, and one day I dreamed to have a hardtop. And you were saying that you cannot have a hardtop if you have a soft top. How it works if you want to put a hardtop?
Yeah. Well, I know. So Jim Healy, you've got a hardtop on your BG8. You want to explain how that works to Mariano, please?
Yeah, getting the hardtop when I went to restore mine was easier said than done. But I got it from a place in England that got the molds from the factory when the factory closed. And it was a lot of shipping and a lot of complicated stuff. And when I did it, the guy was not online. You have to have the entire mechanism of your convertible top removed from the car in order for the hard top to fit on. And then you can take the hard top off and just use a tonneau cover. But you can't have both.
Correct. And so there's a guy, Pete Farmer in Salisbury in the UK that has those original molds. Jim, is that who you got yours from?
No, I got it from, trying to think of the guy's name. Nykel Engineering.
Okay.
Nykiel. And he actually does Lagonda restorations in England. But he kind of got the molds for the hardtop. And with the racing action in England, he had like a whole cottage industry. So he had like all the hardtop stuff. And the other place to get the hardtop stuff from in England is Cape International, which has a lot of good hardtop stuff. And he's pretty flexible about stuff.
Yeah, that's Steve Norton, Cape International.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve's a great guy.
Yeah.
I highly recommend his mirrors too.
Yes.
Because I got them on my 100. I've got them on my BJ8. I've got them on my Sprites. His mirrors are the best.
Yeah.
So
quick question for Jim.
Thanks a lot.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks, Pete. So, Jim, you were talking about putting a tonneau on your BJ8. I've got a BJ7.
I suspect, but I'm not sure, that the cutout for the cockpit is a little bit different for the BJ8, BJ7 versus the BT7. So how does that look with the tonneau on the BJ8, BJ7? Do you know what I'm saying?
They are different than the BT7, definitely.
Yeah, it's a different size. By the time I wound up getting my hardtop on, it was such a pain that my original goal was to kind of use like a lift in my barn to take the hardtop off and leave it up and just use the tonneau during the summer. But I have just left the hardtop on since I finished the restoration in 2003, and I've never bothered to take it off. And it's perfectly fine.
Thanks.
But Paul, to answer your question, the tonneau covers for a BJ7 and a BJ8 are similar.
And Pete, so and different. What I'm trying to figure out is with the BT7, the car was made to have a tonneau, right? Because it's not a convertible. The BT7's a Sportster,
it's a roadster,
right? So
it's a roadster. Yep.
A roadster, right? So with the tonneau on a BT7, does it look more finished than a tonneau on a BJ8? Meaning, if you convert the convertible BJ8 to carry a tonneau, does it look as nice as a BT7 with a tonneau?
I think roadsters look better than convertibles. That's just a personal thought of mine. So, but that's
agreed.
But the tonneaus on BJ8s and BJ7s, they're a little more unwieldy, but you know they look good and they keep the water out. They get a bar across them. I got one on mine. It looks good.
Yep.
I also have a boot on mine for those days when I don't want to put the tonneau on because they are somewhat clumsy and cumbersome.
I love my BJ7. If I had another car, if I had two of them, it would be a BN4 BT7. I just like the roadsters. Are just so cool.
I agree. I think roadsters are nicer looking than the convertibles.
Yep. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. I said we got Bert on. Bert's had some challenges. I'm going to do a little bit of sharing here. So Bert, you want to explain what you're dealing with, and I'm going to share my screen and show them the pictures.
I needed a hub. I was changing the bearings and seals on my BJ7. And on the bottom hub there, that's the original that came with the car. And when we were pressing in the bearing, it got stuck a little, and we were using a hydraulic press, and it bent this lip. We were pressing on this lip, which we shouldn't have been doing. Should have had a socket around here. Anyway, I went online to find a new hub, and I found one out in Ohio. It was a new old stock. The guy shipped it to me, and I put it on, pressed the bearing in, put it on the car. But when I went to fit the O-ring, it didn't fit. O-ring was too small.
It looks entirely different too, doesn't it?
No, well, the one is on the car, and the other one is off the car. So you're looking at the big octagonal nut.
Right.
And the bearing is in there. The only difference is the one that they sold me is for 106. And it's the same hub. It can be used, but you need a different size O-ring. I talked to Healey Surgeons this morning, and she told me, she said, we used to have two different size O-rings. She said, I don't know if I have any more. She's going to look and send me one. But other than that, I measured the diameter inside and outside, and I went online and I found a company called Orange Seal that makes O-rings and seals. And I ordered two that I think are going to fit. They should be here tomorrow. But the only difference in those two hubs is the diameter of the seat of the O-ring, and one has an inside shoulder and an outside shoulder. The one for the 106 had a defined groove that the O-ring fit in. The one for the BJ7 and BJ8, it just fits in it only has an outside wall. It doesn't have the inside wall. So it's kind of hard to tell from the pictures, but that's what I ran up against. When I found out today from Healey Surgeons that the one with the groove that has an inside and an outside wall is from a 106. But
and you have a BJ7.
What's that?
Your car is a BJ7.
It is. It is.
Yep. So the one that came off was a BJ7.
Right. So it's on the car. It's going to work as long as I get as long as the O-ring that I ordered, which is a little larger. She thought we could. She said, I think you can stretch the O-ring and get it. I said, I can stretch it, but it won't stay in that slot long enough for me to slide the
axle in,
and the paper gasket back in.
Yeah.
And button it up. So
does anyone have experience at this with these hubs and different size O-rings?
Yeah, they're perfectly interchangeable. You just have to have the correct O-ring. But
yeah.
We used to interchange them quite frequently.
It's funny, but if you go in the Moss catalog, they only list one O-ring for every. The BN1 is the only one that has a different hub. All the other ones after that, after a certain serial number, take the same hub and same O-ring, but yet there are two different hubs.
So, Mike, do you have a source for those O-rings, the two different sizes? Mike Salter?
I've probably got them.
There you go, Bert. Mike Salter's got them.
Well, I got this package arriving tomorrow. If they don't work, Pete, send me his. I got the book. I'll look him up.
Yeah,
I only need one.
Mike Salter from Ontario.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Bert?
No, that's it. Oh yeah, anybody got a simple way to get the spring clips off the wheel cylinders, so you can change a wheel cylinder?
Good question.
I called you the other day. You didn't call me back. I tried for 10 minutes the other day, and I said I quit. I'm done. I was all alone, and I do want to change the wheel cylinders while I got it all apart, but I couldn't get the clip out.
Is that the 3 clips that slide together?
It's 2. They're 2. One comes in from the top and one from the bottom.
Okay, yeah. There's a trick to them. When I went through that recently, I don't remember what the trick is. Yeah.
You're going to keep it to yourself, Ted, huh?
I just forgot what it was. Yeah.
You have to drive a screwdriver, pointer screwdriver.
Yeah.
If you look at the bottom, the clip that's closest to the back plate has 2 little ears that stick up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to carefully put a very small screwdriver in and drive it down between the 2 clips to lift the outer clip away from the ears. And then you'll find you can just pop it out.
Yeah, yeah.
But you have to get the clip past the little ears that stick up.
Okay.
Isn't there actually 3?
Yeah, it's locking it in. I understand what you're saying. It's got a couple of little ears that stop it from coming apart while you're driving.
Just have to separate though. Just have to pull it apart slightly. It's not hard.
Okay.
But Mike, how do you get the other clip past the e-brake lever?
Sorry, say it again in here.
Once you get the 2 clips separated, how do you get the bottom clip past the e-brake lever?
It will curve by. It will actually curve past. It's
that's the tough part.
The other way you can do is you can actually pry the wheel cylinder and lift the e-brake lever out of plate.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody had an article about that last week or so, or maybe it was on the Healey string, and I read it and I thought I got to try that, but prying the cylinder away far enough so that you can then get it out. I don't know whether it was your comments that said it or not, but I read about it and I thought I've got to try that because I struggle with them all the time.
Yeah. Bigger hammer.
Bigger hammer.
Yeah, don't force it. Get a bigger hammer. Yeah. As far as the O-rings go, I know our local True Value hardware store has quite an impressive selection of O-rings, small ones and big ones. And if you run into a pinch, don't forget, maybe try them out.
I did NAPA, I did Ace Hardware, I did True Value, I did everything.
Those Healey folks are resourceful, aren't we?
Try it. If you need O-rings and you really can't find them, go on Orange Seal, O-R-A-N-G-E Seal. They're out of Texas and Orlando, I think. They got a tremendous, I think they make every O-ring and seal made known to man.
Okay. Well, hopefully that's going to help you out there, Bert, and we look forward to hearing the results.
Now, I just want to get that wheel cylinder off so I can replace it.
Well, again, Mike's calling all the way from a foreign country to give the answers for that. So, Mike DeVito, I think you're on, correct?
I'm here, Pete. Yep.
Great. So, Mike's got a question regarding PCV valves. You want to give the team your question? Yeah,
just a quick question. So like some of you also, I've got a BJ8 and I get a little bit of oil leaking out of that little hole on the bottom of the bell housing. Not a lot, but enough that you know, I'd like to see if I could do something about it. And I read a couple of articles recently, and I saw something in Norman Knox's book about putting a PCV valve in. The suggestion was if you take some of the crankcase pressure out, that might reduce some of the oil leaks. So what I'm wondering is, has anybody tried that? And does it actually work? And if so, where would you get the parts to do it? So that's my question.
Where would you put the PCV valve?
Well, that's his question, Bert. So anyone have experience with, and I've heard people talk about that as well, Mike. So
I mean, it's got a pretty good diagram. I mean, it comes off, you know, where the tube that comes up and goes across the T on the rocker cover, and then kind of it goes over to the carburetor. You put it right after the T, and then it goes into the back. There's a plug on the back of the intake manifold, a spare plug.
Yeah, yeah.
You take that out and put in something that'll connect to the tube. So the PCV valve is right after the T, and then it goes into the intake manifold. So I mean, it looks pretty simple to do, but I'm just wondering if it's worth it. And then you know, if anybody might have a suggestion about where to get the tube connector essentially to go into the manifold. If you've done it, I'd like to know and give it a try.
Anyone with experience is doing that modification? Well, you know, maybe
I've just done it on a 100, but it's very different on a 6-cylinder. So I probably can't help a lot that way.
Okay.
You know, Mike, Norman's son, David, you know, runs Sports Car Specialties out in California. You know, he's a source, possibly. Have you been on his website?
I have. I poked around, and I didn't really see anything. But maybe I'll send them an email or give them a call.
Yeah, it's David Knox running that business now. He's Norman's son.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll let everybody know if it works or how it goes. Thanks.
Great. Okay, sounds good. So David Walsh, you had the exact same question, right?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, David.
Okay, great. Yes, that's funny. He asked that question. I had the exact same question. I saw some PCV valves on Amazon. Now, I'm not sure exactly, if they all pretty much do the same or if it's a volume issue, but some are spring and some are gravity. So you have to be careful as to which one, how you mount them exactly, depending on which spring or gravity. I would imagine getting the T and the hoses, et cetera, would be fairly simple, but I found one on Amazon. It's like $6. So I figured I might just buy it and see.
We Healey owners are big spenders, right, Dave?
Yes, the oil leak thing is awfully a rare thing, I know, with British. I think they make drones now and they leak oil too, so just the way it's a cultural thing or something. I used to own a Norton. That's why I'm very familiar with it. I have actually owned the DJ7 about 6-7 months, so I'm getting used to it.
Great. And you said you got an issue with your starter?
Yeah, it's awfully curious. I've asked a lot of different forums. It's a pretty unique problem because everyone's just sort of like, don't know. It basically, when the engine's cold, usually on a cold day, kick in, it'll turn the engine all day long. And the thing is, it's like, it goes off like a drill when I bench tested it. But when you just start it and it just kicks over the engine, it'll kick that bendix right out, that gear right out. When the engine's warmer, it starts it right up. No problem. But it's just kind of irritating. It'll take me 7-8 times sometimes to finally get the thing to kick over and start. But I was just wondering if anyone had any experience with that sort of problem.
So Dave, is it a standard starter motor that you have on the car? It's not one of those high gear ones or anything?
No, it's not a new type. It's an original Lucas crash type starter.
Okay.
And everything looked good when I put it to, when I put the rebuilt one. There was a guy down in New Bedford that did it for me. Did a great job as far as I know. But unless he changed the gear or something or changed something around, it should be original.
Anyone with any experiences like that, what Dave's experiencing? Well, Dave, I've got a spare rebuilt. It works great. Starter motor. You're welcome to borrow that if you want to see if that has any effect. If you put that in, that may tell you what's up with. But it's a spare that I carry in my trunk.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I think I'm not sure. I checked the gap. You know, the gap between the ring gear and the starter gear, and it's all within tolerances. But I got a feeling that might be the issue, that I have to perhaps put a shim in there or something, or a gasket or something there to get it to come back a little bit more, so it doesn't kick out so quickly, you know.
But that's funny you say when the car is warm, it's fine. You wouldn't think that.
Well, that's true, but it's like it just turns over so much easier when it's warm, of course. And even on warm days, I have very little problem with it. But on a cold day, boy, it takes forever.
Wow.
Peter, I had a similar problem with my 100, and that low torque starter cured the whole thing. So it's not original, but it works.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people,
high torque starter,
told me just get those stupid old Lucas starters and get yourself a induction gear type, and you won't regret it. I'll probably go that. It's only $200 or so not a big deal.
Well, it was an easy. It's only a 2-bolt conversion, but getting your fingers in between the engine, the footwell was a trick to get that lower bolt out.
You got to have little tiny fingers.
You got or a wife that has small hands.
Sorry. Yeah, I had another thing. Would you recommend, say, if I just wanted to get my brakes checked, I think I got to get the discs turned down. So I don't see much point in me taking it apart and checking the discs, because it's got to get turned down. But I got to take it to a machine shop. Would you recommend like going to like a Midas, or you think I would be better off going to like a specialty sports place? There's one in Falmouth. They're Falmouth Sports Cars.
Why don't you just buy new rotors?
What's the problem with the brakes?
They're hard. They press down hard, but they're just not very efficient. And I had a guy who was, he was very familiar with the Healeys, and he drove it around for a good 45 minutes. And he goes, I think it might be the front discs are a little glazed. And he goes that they're not really 100%. They're not bad, but they're not great. They're not really good. I don't feel, I realize I'm used to my power brakes on the car, my modern car. But, I really would like to improve those brakes as much as possible.
We used to have lots of problems with this when people came away from modern cars and they got into Healeys, which is exactly what you're describing. And my test was always on a dry paved road. You stand on the brakes, does it lock up 4 wheels? And if it does lock up 4 wheels, you'll probably not get them much better.
Right. Yeah, I know. And this one, the BJ7 doesn't have the, it had the option of having a booster. It doesn't have.
But it should still lock up 4 wheels when you stand on the brakes.
Right. Okay.
I converted my BJ7 to power brakes, and it made a world of difference. And it's not a big job, and it's not an expensive job.
So you put a booster on, Bert? You put a BJ8 booster on?
No, I bought that at the Lockheed aftermarket. I think it's about $179, $189. I did it about, 7, 8 years ago. I mounted it down in the passenger side wheel well. And then it's just a matter of making a couple of new brake lines and putting in the vacuum.
What do you guys think about as far as me taking it to like a standard brake shop and having them check it out, the brakes? Would you recommend that, or you say is there something special about the Healeys?
No, anybody with a brake lathe can turn that rotor for you. Any shop that has a brake lathe can do that.
Right.
And there's a minimum thickness for yours, which is 0.325 of an inch. You can't go any further than 0.325 of an inch.
0.325. Okay, great.
But Bob, you wouldn't recommend going to Midas or anything like that, would you?
If you're going to disassemble the rotor and take it to them, they'll put it on their lathe and turn it to the spec, or at least somewhere.
But I mean, there's a standard brakes. I mean, the drums and the discs I would think that they could take care of it, but I'm just wondering if maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe take it to a specialist.
It's very different from modern car in that you can't take the brake disc off without disassembling the hub. Almost every modern car, you just take the wheel off, you pull off the disc. But in your car, you've actually got to pull the hub off and take the disc off the hub. And your average Midas shop probably won't be that good at setting up those wheel bearings.
Well, that's why I said if you're going to take the rotor off yourself, it should be fine. You just need brake weight. If you're going to take the car in and say, here's my brakes, fix them, then you're going to have to go to somebody who knows what they're doing with the Healey.
I got you. All right. I'll do that. There's a guy in Falmouth who can do it.
I know a guy in Ipswich, Mass that can do it for you too, Dave.
You don't have a brake lathe.
You don't have a brake lathe?
No.
Okay.
I do not.
But you do brakes all the time and have someone else turn them, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but
well, it's closer than Ipswich. Sorry.
You in Florida?
I'm sorry.
Where's that sunshine coming from?
Oh, actually, you won't believe it. I'm in Indiana now. I work in Indiana and I live in Massachusetts. It's a long
That's a hell of a commute.
Yeah, I work on ships. I work here 2 weeks in the Chicago area and I fly home every 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then, yeah, like I said, it's a long story. It's a casino out here. I work on the ship out here at the casino.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Hey, well, Dave, Jeff Phoenix, where are you at in Indiana?
I'm in Gary, Indiana. Lovely Gary, Indiana.
Hi.
Oh, right now I'm sitting in Indianapolis.
Oh, we can practice and throw a rock at each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Hoosier state, right?
That's right.
We don't want to have fights on this call.
No, no.
Oh, no.
People are really nice. They're not that New England, savviness, I guess, but they're really nice people out here. Farm people, Midwestern, nice people.
Be careful, Dave, what you say. Okay, so Dave Berube, you're on the call, right?
Yeah, Pete, I'm here.
Great. So you have a question regarding the oil seal on the overdrive unit, is that right?
Yes, right. Yep.
Okay.
It's leaking, but the engine was just rebuilt, so I have the new that new kit for the rear main, I guess that's good. I'm getting just a tad bit of a drip out of the back of the overdrive, and it's not a big deal because it's not a big drip. It really is just one, but I'm trying to get rid of all drips, and I was just wondering, I believe there is a seal in the back. I'm just curious.
So when you had the engine rebuilt, did you have any work done on the transmission too?
No, other than a clutch and a resurfaced flywheel.
Okay. So when the transmission was out, did you put a new seal in the back of the transmission?
No, in the back of the transmission?
Yes. Well, you said that isn't that leaking out of the back of the transmission where the overdrive connects?
Yeah, correct. Right. Is that part of the overdrive, part of the transmission, or is that all one? Or right. There is no seal
there, but there's a seal in the back as well as one in the front on the transmission.
Okay, but the leak is coming, right near the drive shaft.
Okay.
Right. So I believe it's right there at the bottom of the overdrive unit.
But that you're gonna have to remove the transmission again to do that, Dave. Right? Can anyone do that? Replace that, Mike? You were gonna say?
It's a pretty unusual place to get a leak on a Healey gearbox. Actually, the rear main seal. So I would be wanting to look at what the real cause is. It could be the actual yoke being loose or something like that. I'd look more carefully than just changing the seal.
And Dave, if it's only a minor leak, I'd let it be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just thought I'd ask that. I'm just asking the question. That's all. Just to see what the reactions are from people.
It's quite easy to do in the car. Just have to take the tunnel out, and you can take off the yoke and change the seal.
Okay, I was mistaken. Mike had it correct then. Sorry about that.
It's part of the British car under seal rust proofing system that came with back in the day.
Now, Dave, you also had a question regarding the vacuum advance unit?
Yes, I had, I bought a rebuilt one from AH Spares, and I didn't notice right away, but it had a threaded fitting. My old one did, and this one that I got that was rebuilt doesn't have it. So, I mean, we were able to cherry rig a hose. I mean, it's working fine, but I just thought if I could get a vacuum advance that had a threaded, I don't know what you call it, the fitting.
Call Rob Medinsky up in Canterbury, New Hampshire, and he'll sell you the correct vacuum advance unit with the correct threaded fitting on it. He's at British Vacuum Unit.
Yeah.
And so, Dave, you go on to, again, if you go onto our resource page on the website, the members only section, Rob's in there. Rob rebuilt the distributor on my BJ8 as well as my Sprites. He does great work.
And he has the proper vacuum advance unit right on his shelf, and he'll be glad to send you one with the threaded fitting for the vacuum line.
Right, that's the part. What's Rob? What was the last name again? What was the last name for Rob?
It's British Vacuum Unit.
Oh, that's the name of the company. Okay, I got it.
Company, British Vacuum Unit.
Yeah, he doesn't have an easy name like Abbott. So
he's done a couple. He's done a couple tech sessions for us at summits and stuff like that. So
okay,
he's very knowledgeable and he's very helpful with that kind of stuff. And he manufactures the rotors that we're using now and the condensers, and he refurbishes distributors and vacuum advanced units. So he's the source.
Yeah, and his turnaround time is very quick, Dave, too.
Really quick.
Yep. Highly recommended.
So once I get a vacuum unit, is it just a matter of popping out the distributor, and then I've never taken apart a vacuum advance before. Is that just unscrew, or?
I would suggest sending the unit up to him and let him do it, and he'll send it back to you within a few days.
Oh, I send the whole thing. I see. Okay. It's rather sad in that it's already been rebuilt, but okay, I'll have to check that out.
Because it doesn't. It sounds like it wasn't properly with all the right components for you, Dave.
I guess not. No, it's supposed to be for a BJ8, but.
And again, Rob will have that back to you in less than a week, in and out.
Okay. Good.
So
I will check it out.
Okay. Thank you. Daryl, you got a BJ with some sputtering going on?
I do. It runs beautifully when I start it up. I took it out, what day was this? Saturday, beautiful day. Took it out for a nice little ride. No problem. As soon as I get it out on the road, 40, 50 minutes into the ride, it'll start to sputter, it'll miss, it'll sputter, then it'll come back. It doesn't stall, but it will go through a stuttering phase. And I just, I had a problem a number of years ago where there was crud in the gas tank. I got that cleaned up. Maybe it's come back, but anybody experience anything like this, or any ideas?
You got a fuel filter on it?
I do.
Is it clean? Can you see it? Is it in the one?
I've got a little filter up at the front. It looks clean when I look at it. I don't know underneath the car. I've got a small inline filter up where the carburetors are.
Need to really diagnose whether or not this problem is related to the amount of fuel the car's using. Like if it stutters and stammers going up hills when you're using lots more fuel, there's more fuel required, then it's probably a fuel delivery issue. But if it's a stuttering problem that occurs when you're just cruising along and not using a lot of fuel, it's almost certainly not even a fuel problem.
What would you think it would be?
I would say it's some ignition fault of some sort. That would be my first guess. Fuel problems typically occur when you're using a lot of fuel.
Yeah, no, I've been on flat ground and it'll just all of a sudden start to sputter. So, I've been on some forums and suggestion was to replace the coil.
Coils seldom fail, but they can give that sort of symptom, yes.
Is that a good starting point? Try replacing that.
If you've got a spare coil, put it on, just see if it helps.
Yeah.
The condenser.
Also, condensers can cause the same thing. That's right.
So
or
do
bad
both
plug wires?
Sorry?
Or bad plug wires. I've had that happen to me before.
Could be arcing.
Yep.
So what should I start with? I'll, try to isolate it. Start with a coil.
Start with a
condenser.
coil, then a condenser, and a rotor.
At the same time or one at a time?
Well, one at a time, so you know which one it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. As I said, it's runs beautifully around town. If you put on 15, 20 miles, no problem. Driving for 40, 50 miles, it'll kick in. It'll start really, it seems as it gets warmer up to temperature, that's when it's starting to happen.
Yeah, coil would be my first.
Sounds like the coil.
Yeah.
I had a problem years ago with mine, and it was the coil, but it used to cut completely. You'd be going around with sputter, and then it wouldn't run, and the coil would be hot.
And that would be after you'd been running for a while. It wouldn't be right on startup, right? It would have to be.
No.
They overheat.
When it does it, stop the car and put your hand on the coil and see how hot it is. If it's really hot, then you got something wrong in there.
Yeah, I always carry a spare coil with me, Daryl.
Yep. Okay, any the specs on the coil itself, anything that, or any coil you can recommend?
12 volt non-ballast coil.
12 volt non-ballast, excellent.
And you're still running points, right, Daryl?
Pardon me?
You don't have electronic ignition.
No, it's still points, everything's original.
Okay, yep. So, I mean, look, like the coil sitting on top of my generator right there.
The gold thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
One other small suggestion. We occasionally get people who have a fuel cap that doesn't have a vent in it. And that will cause all sorts of issues like that. If you just try loosening the fuel cap off, see if that fixes it. Sometimes it does, because the tank can actually get such a vacuum in it that it stops the pump delivering fuel.
Huh.
Actually, what Michael's just saying, the exact same thing just happened to my tractor. Yeah. And I drilled out the vent hole in the gas cap and put a new coil in it that runs like a top now. So it's interesting to hear you talk, because it's exactly what was happening to mine too. So
was it the vent or was it the coil?
Well, I thought it was a vent, because when I did the vent first, it still started running better. But a week later, the same thing. When I was running it a little bit longer, it started to fart, skip, spark out flames out the exhaust and all kinds of things. And then it would die. But then when it cooled down, it would restart. So again, new coil and drilled out the vent cap a little bit, and it's been like new.
Another trick is you carry a bottle of cold water with you. Just dribble the cold water over the coil for 30 seconds and then see if the problem's gone away.
Really?
Just to cool the coil down.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like, I looked at my coil. It looks like it's an old Lucas. I mean, it might be the original as far as I know, but that's good. I'll give it all a shot and report back. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I know we've talked about this in the past as it relates to different types of oil. So I'm just going to share my screen, just let everyone aware that Valvoline, NAPA's got a special running right now on Valvoline VR1 2050 at $4.79 a quart. It's normally $8.49. So there's other brands out there, but NAPA's running a special right now just to make people aware of it. If it happens to be it's got these are one of the products with high zinc. There's a Brad Penn and other ones, but at less than $5 a quart, that's pretty damn cheap. So
that's a bargain.
Yeah,
I picked up 8 quarts last week.
Well, I ordered mine with NAPA this afternoon, and have it in the morning.
Pete, does that have zinc in it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's Valvoline VR1 2050 racing oil.
This guy's pictures on there, it doesn't disappear.
Yeah, let me.
multiple people have talked, but.
I'm sorry?
Oh, how'd you do that?
He can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Bruce.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you. So that's the monthly special that NAPA's running right now. So just make people aware of where that, if it's something that's of interest to you. So, okay, well, thank you for that. So we got Dave. Now, let's see. Rob Madsen, you had some questions for us regarding oil leaks in your transmission seal?
Yeah, it seems like we've beat that topic to death, but that's probably the normal course. When you're ready to give up on chasing down all the oil leaks, has anybody ever tried attaching a drip pan underneath the transmission? I see Austin-Healey Spares sells one, overdrive gearbox drip tray. Has anyone ever tried that?
I wasn't aware of that, Rob. I saw your note on that. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it you know, it's really my biggest leak is there where the transmission seal is, and they sell something. It's just kind of pricey. It's like 80 pounds British.
When you say the leak,
what is it?
Where is the leak exactly? Be more
It
specific.
seems to be, you know, where you mate the where the bell housing is, the
seal.
So that's where the little split pin is in the hole.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, that could be rear main seal from the engine or the gearbox.
Yeah.
It's more likely to be the engine than the gearbox.
I just don't want to pull it apart. I thought this was a nice Band-Aid, but I didn't know if I'd be carrying all that oil laying on that tray, if that'd be a fire hazard or what.
Maybe you can get a diaper for it.
Yeah, actually, I read something. Somebody said put a sponge down there to collect it. Anyway, I just thought if anyone had tried that.
I'm not aware of that, Rob.
Okay.
You collect enough of it, you can pour it back in again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recycle it that way, right?
Another use for a PCV valve, maybe.
That's right. Remove some of that pressure. So, so Ted Cryer had some questions regarding his wheel bearings on his BN1. You want to pose your question, Ted?
Yeah, I've never done anything with the wheel bearings. I'm sure they were serviced in the past, but I've done many of the usual cone type of tapered wheel bearings. And then it dawned on me that these are ball bearings. And I was wondering if there's any advice on doing the ball bearings. I read the shop manual, and it seems to say you would, from inside the hub, once you've got it apart, kind of drift the bearing out so that you could repack it and then drift it back in. And I was wondering if that's really the way to do it, or maybe just get your fingers in there with fresh grease and squish it in between the balls. But so I wonder if anybody had any experience with the ball bearings. They're working right just fine these days, and I don't want to create a problem, you know. So
is this the fronts or the rears?
This would be the rear fronts. You know, so it's a ball bearing, inner and outer, and you just can't pop them out like you can with a cone bearing and then grease them and put them back together again. It seemed to say, from reading the manual, that you can get a drift in from the opposite side and gently drift the bearing out, clean it up, grease it, and then put it back in. I guess, is that really the right way to do it? Seems like it's a little bit risky and a lot of work.
I don't. Roy Crane, do you have any experience with yours when you rebuilt yours?
Yeah, I replaced the bearings in mine, and I did use a drift pin to pull them out and whatnot. But if you got grease in there now, I'm tempted to just push some more grease in and leave it be.
Yeah, I mean, they seem fine. I'm just thinking, like in September, going to that summit out in Newport, I want to make sure everything works right, and that's the only thing left on the car I haven't touched. So I thought I'd do it. Okay.
What are your thoughts, Bob? Bob Abbott.
No, I would do exactly what you said, Roy. I just add a little grease to it if you think it might be.
Yeah.
You know, take a look at it. I wouldn't pop them out of there unless you have to. Unless
Right.
you're hearing a lot of bearing noise. And just add some more grease to it if you're concerned about it.
Yeah, you got to get it all back together. There's a spacer goes between them to set the distance correct and everything. Yeah, you know, if I didn't have to take it apart, I wouldn't.
if you do have to take the bearings out, to get the inner bearing out, I've got a hub here, just happen to have one. If you look very carefully, there are actually two little notches. See the notches there and there?
Yep.
And if you're trying to get that bearing out, those notches are so you can get a drift on the outer race of the bearing and drive it out.
Okay.
Right.
But you don't want to cock it either. You want to kind of do it.
One side, then the other. Very gently.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll probably go with the squishing some nice new fresh grease in there because it's working fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I think that's a good way to do that, Ted. So great.
The car had been raced in the past, so I'm sure, vintage race, I'm sure it was well cared for. It seems that way. So okay. Thank you.
No, thank you. And so Deb, I know you and Gary may have some questions. You want to share your questions? You're on mute, Deb. Deb, you're on mute.
There we go. Hi, it's Rick and Deb. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Rick.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Rick, it's all yours, honey.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Rick.
And before Rick starts, we're the newbies, so be gentle.
Haven't we been gentle with everybody?
You've been wonderful.
Okay, I got a question about the brake and clutch fluid. I got to bleed the brakes, and it's got a fluid in there right now that's red. Can I just use like a .4, or is there something specific I have to use?
So did you so originally that isn't, .4 was originally, some people are going to silicone now because it won't ruin your paint, but there are other people say that puts, it doesn't give you the same sort of pedal that you do with the .4.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I was wondering what would be the best fluid to use in there.
If it's red, it's probably silicone.
Oh, is it, Rick?
Okay.
So,
yeah, I would
It's
check
going to be
it.
silicone, yes.
Okay, and that's
You
the
have to
same
stay with
fluid that's in
silicone.
the same.
That's what's in there. You have to stay with it.
It's red.
You need to be very sure if it is silicone before you start doing anything. You need to drain a little off, put it in some water and see if it mixes. If it doesn't mix, it's silicone. If it does mix, it's regular fluid.
That was my question, because I have silicone in mine and it's blue.
Yeah, it's a blue color.
Really?
It could be Girling Crimson.
It could be what?
Girling Crimson.
Oh,
that'd be red,
okay.
Right? Like Harvard University, crimson red.
Yeah. So I'll just do the water test and see. So if it's silicone, then I'll stay with the .5, right?
No. Take a paintbrush and dip it in there and paint it on your fender, and if it curls.
Yeah, that's a surefire way.
No.
Mike,
and Deb wanted you to be nice, Rick, too.
Yeah.
Mike, did you say if it mixed with water, it was silicone?
You're on mute, Mike.
If it mixes with water, it's not silicone. If it doesn't mix with water, it is silicone.
Okay, thank you.
That's good to know. That's a good hint. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so I'll keep silicone, but when you say silicone, that's .5, correct?
.5.
Yeah.
But you can't switch.
Otherwise, what's that?
You cannot switch, Rick.
Yes, you can. Yeah. You can switch if you drain the whole system.
Right. No, I understand. But he can't just add one or the other to top it up or anything like that.
Drain the whole system and change all the seals.
Yeah. No, we're going to keep what's in there. But if it's not silicone, then .4 would be recommended.
Mike's shaking his head. Yes, Rick. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Okay, I
you're on the phone.
Yeah.
I'm just on the phone.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so .4 or .5, depending on
.5 silicone, .4 non-silicone.
Yeah.
I switched over about 4 years ago, and before I switched, I called a manufacturer and spoke to their technical department. And they said as long as I drained the entire system, I didn't have to flush it, and I didn't have to change the seals. And it's been 4 years, and I haven't had a problem.
Okay. I'm going to go with what's in there. So
No, I'm not. I'm talking what Mike just said, that you got to change the seals. I didn't change. I had .4 in there.
Yeah, in the times when we were putting silicon in, we were always told that we had to change all the seals. So I don't know, maybe technology has changed, but certainly 10 years ago, we always had to change all the seals. Apparently they used to swell when you mix the two fluids.
Yeah, I've heard something like that before too. I'm just going to keep what's in there. So I'll do a water test and we'll go from there. I got a question on the timing now. I put a new distributor in, a Protronics electronic, and I got it to start, and I turned it, and I got it, which seems to be running pretty decent, but there's only a mark on there for the TDC. What's the best way to time it? Just wherever it runs good?
5/8 of an inch before TDC at idle.
5/8 of an inch before.
Yep. With a timing light.
Okay, great.
I actually do mine statically, but you can still get away with the timing light.
Okay, and that's now you're running what? Just regular 93 unleaded fuel?
I use regular, but I've got a 4.
Okay, yeah, it's a BJ8, and the motor's been done before, so I would,
But I mean, Mike, so you can still get regular fuel in Ontario?
Yeah, I just use regular. I don't even care if it's got ethanol on it. It still runs fine in my 4. Occasionally, I get a little bit of float chamber boil on a really hot day. But this is Canada, it's snowing most of the time.
But you're saying, so you're not using, you're still using unleaded gas, but you're using regular octane.
Unleaded 87 octane. It's
really?
Compression in a 4 that's quite adequate.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So with the BJ8 though, I think, don't they require a higher octane?
You probably have to go up to premium in a BJ8.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I got one more question too. Is going to replace the tires. The tires are like brand new, but they've been sitting there very, very old. What would be a good tire to put on that car?
Town Fair Tire has, I swear, I went on their website a while back, not that long ago. They've got the Vredesteins for $176 a piece, which is about as cheap as I've seen them.
What tire is that?
The Vredestein. The 185, the 185, 70, 15s. Go on Town Fair Tire's website.
Now, 185 is a bigger tire than what was on there originally. They were originally around a 165.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the 165s on there now.
You may not.
165 SR15.
Good luck finding that tire.
Okay, so but what was the brand name? I'm not familiar.
So it's what's it? VREDESTEIN. It's Dutch.
It's a
Oh, okay, with a V. Okay, yes, okay. I know.
Vredestein. Vredestein.
There you go, Dutch. Yeah. You go, girl. She was laughing at us.
Murder my language.
She wouldn't laugh at us, Pete.
She was laughing at us. Those dumb Americans, they can't pronounce anything.
Heineken.
Yeah, there you go. Heineken.
Yeah, Heineken. That's all you got to know in Dutch. Heineken. Round bottle Heineken.
But
okay, so
Universal Tire also sells those. What tires too?
What's that?
Universal Tire also sells those. Yeah. They're a distributor.
Okay.
Bert said Town Fair Tire. Again, I'm not sure where. Are you here in New England or are you out in Indiana with Deb?
Yeah, no, I'm in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Where's Universal Tire, Pete?
It's online. I think they're in Pennsylvania. That's where I've sourced mine from. Try Coker. Okay. Maybe Coker may have them as well.
Tire Rack has them too.
Tire Rack has them. Okay.
Everybody has.
I bought my tires from Coker, and they've got some really nice Michelin 165s.
Do they? Yeah.
So am I better with the 165 or 185? It's 165s on there now.
They were 165 original. I got 165s on my 100 and 185s on my BJ8s. But the problem is the spare tire won't fit. A 185 spare tire won't fit in your trunk.
Oh.
You can't close the boot lid with a 185 spare.
I think we're sticking with the 165 then.
Yeah. I guess we can do that.
Or split the difference.
Yeah. And they should be able to mount those, even though they're wire wheels.
Well, that's a different subject.
Oh, okay.
You're going to find something special that can mount those.
Okay.
And balance them.
Yeah. Now, how about like a motorcycle shop?
You go see Bob Abbott, and he can balance them for you too.
Who's that?
You located.
Oh,
Bob's in Ipswich, Mass. British Car R&R.
Yeah.
Anybody know local that's here in Western Massachusetts?
Yeah, Springfield area.
Well, we talked about that gentleman. What was in it? Was he in Oxford or
Auburn?
Auburn. But is he still doing that, or is he now retired?
I think he's still doing it. New England.
What's his name again, Bob?
New England Wire Wheel. I don't know his name, but I think it's in the. Isn't it listed in the sources, Pete?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, on the users, in the members only section, under resources, New England Tire. New England Wire Wheel, you said, Bob? Sorry. Sorry, my bad.
He's in Auburn, just outside of Worcester. That's probably as close as you're going to find to Springfield.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's not too far. Yeah. Okay, great. I think that should do it.
Okay. Any other questions we have? Anyone I miss? Daryl, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. I did have a question.
Engine stands. Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. I recently took out my my BT7 engine. I took it out, used the lift, and I put it down on some blocks, and I'm starting to clean it. But I have an engine stand. I'm concerned about how to attach the engine to the engine stand. My question is simply this. Should I use the engine mounting plate to attach to the stand, or should I attach it directly to the back of the engine block? Anybody know? Block?
I always attach it to the engine plate.
Engine plate, because that gives you more options.
I have a large engine stand, and the arms on it are so big that I don't think I could get it onto the block itself.
Okay, that was one of the things I was looking at.
I always use the engine plate.
Okay, engine plate, excellent.
I just did it today, and I put it onto the block. But for a typical engine stand, you need to use a spacer. You need long bolts. I think they're got to be 4 inches long. They're 3/8 UNF bolts, and you have to use a spacer that's 1.5 inches long to get the engine far enough away from the stand to get the crankshaft in and out.
Yes. Okay.
So Daryl, are you rebuilding the motor or just cleaning the motor?
Right now, I'm just cleaning the motor, and then I'm going to make a decision about where to take it to have it rebuilt. It's going to be rebuilt.
Okay, so you are rebuilding it. Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't need. So as Mike Salter mentioned, you're not going to take the crank out then. You're going to someone else do that.
No, I won't be taking the crank out. I just want to get the 2 inches of crud off of it.
And where are you based, Daryl?
I'm in Fairfield County, Connecticut.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, again, Bob Abbott rebuilt the motor in my BJ8. And,
yes, I want to thank you. Last time I asked that question, I want to thank you for all the resources and all the help suggestions. I want to thank a bunch of folks who provided some input. So great. It's moving along.
Okay, well, that's great. Hopefully you'll have it ready for next driving season, right?
I'm hoping so.
It might be a little tight this year, unfortunately.
Actually, my schedule is 2023. I'm being very conservative.
Okay. Well, if you have it ready for 2022, we're going to have a big crew out in the Poconos for Enclave 22 to celebrate the 70th anniversary. So
that's a target.
Maybe that's a target. The third week in September.
That's a target.
So, other questions that people have tonight?
Hi, yes.
Good, Darren.
Hi, yeah, thanks. So I have a BJ8 that I'm rebuilding, and I've got the rear axle out. And I was looking in the manual, and it says if you don't have the same oil, to flush it. And I don't know what oil was in the rear axle, so I'm just wondering, is there a trick on how to flush it properly and how to get all the what do I flush it with?
So have you removed the differential?
Yeah, it's out of the car.
Okay.
No, the differential itself, is it out of the rear end?
Yeah, I mean, the car is basically a chassis on a rotisserie right now. Everything's out of the car. And I could take the rear axle. I could take the rear axle apart. I could take the rear axle apart, but it's actually really tight, and I don't really want to mess with the shims and everything unless you guys think I really should. I just wanted to go ahead.
Mike's going to give a suggestion for you, I think.
To pull out the rear half shafts, which is not that difficult, and you probably should change the rear hub seals anyway. And then once you've got those out, it's very, very easy just to undo the bolts around the pumpkin. I think there's 12 of them, and pull the pumpkin out.
Right.
That's something I would do just to be
regardless.
Sure. Okay.
And then how do you flush it to get all the old
well, then,
oil
once you do
out?
it like that, you can just put Varsol in and slosh it around. It'll flush it out.
Okay. And then I might as well change the gaskets and everything at that time.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd also change the pinion seal at the same time.
Okay. But what about the pinion bearing?
Nope.
No, leave it.
They're a very, very tough rear axle, but the seals do go on them. You know, if that has got the original seals in it, they're probably like rocks by now.
Yeah, one of the seals and bearings has been changed on one of the wheels. It was done right when I got the car by a shop. The other one wasn't leaking, and the pinion wasn't leaking, so they just left that alone. But I've got it out, so I might as well bite the bullet and open it up, is what you're saying.
Not that hard a job, really isn't.
Okay. Sounds good.
Darren, do you know, is that the original differential you have in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, just a point of consideration is if you can find a 3.5 diff, it will improve your driving experience.
Okay. That's interesting. And while I've got you, when I'm rebuilding the car, what's your thought on the shock upgrade, the Putski Far Pass thing, or one of the ones from AH Spares? Does anyone have an opinion on it?
I did my BJ7 with Putskis, and it's a big difference.
So when I see big difference, but when you say that, like, what's what softer? Okay. So you don't feel everything.
No. And the rears are very simple. The fronts, you got to compress the springs, and there's no welding or drilling.
Yeah. No, I've looked at it, and everything's apart anyway. I pulled the springs out when I took the car apart.
I think it's still about $1,000 for the whole kit.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we've had another club member in addition to Bert who's done it, and he swears by it. I've never done it, so I can't provide any input on that, Darren. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking was, since the Armstrong shocks would have to be rebuilt anyway, you keep the fronts, but they don't need to be rebuilt, and the backs you throw away. So.
Well, you don't throw them away. You keep them in case you ever want to put the car back to.
Yeah, I just meant you don't use them.
On the fronts, you just need to remove the valve out of the shock so that the lever just flops up and down.
Yeah, but I figure it's really only a $600 change, because I'd need to get the Armstrong shocks rebuilt, and that's about $400.
Yeah, I think his kit is still about $1,000 for the BJ.
Yeah.
Don Pay.
It's all Bilstein. or at least when I bought it. It was all 4 Bilstein shocks plus all the hardware and everything.
Yep, still is.
Yeah, Don Pay also did it with his. He's got a BJ7, Darren, and
cool.
Yeah, he highly recommended it too. Good, Bob Mahoney, you got your hand up. I think you have another question.
Yeah, so pedestrian.
We can't hear you, Bob.
Craig, AM/FM CD player. Sorry.
You were breaking up there. Your first question, Bob.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I've got a Craig AM/FM CD player radio, and it's lousy. Is there anything that's correct that actually gives you any decent sound?
Well, they just had an AM radio originally. They didn't have that CD player. But Alan's going to put speakers in his Mazda Miata seats for his system. So that's the thing you need to do now, Bob.
Oh, wow.
Rip the whole interior out and go Mazda Miata.
That's just speakers though. That's not your heads. You need to, he's looking for a nice Clarion.
I'm looking for a nice radio that looks good. That doesn't look like it's, it looks period.
And you're going to put in that little hole where it says, where there's normally the Sprite cover, right?
Yeah.
Find yourself an old used BMC push button radio.
BMC?
Yeah, British Motor Corporation.
Or Motorola. They could have been either one.
Yeah.
And send the radio out to a radio rebuilder.
Yeah.
And for about $200, he can take the guts out of your BMC radio, put in a 50 watt per channel AM/FM stereo, and add anything you want, like Bluetooth and SUB ports,
really,
and et cetera, and it'll be AM/FM radio. The dial will be exactly the same. The knobs are exactly the same. It all works excellent. I've done it to probably 6 or 8 radios for people.
Really?
And it fits right back in the hole that you took it out of. And other than having to put some extra speakers in, because you're now dealing with a stereo, and you don't want to try to play it all through the little teeny single speaker that originally came with it. It's a great way to go.
And where do you find a BMC radio, Bob?
Just go online. You'll find them on
eBay.
eBay.
You'll find them all over the place.
So I'm looking for a BMC radio. For a 59 Sprite? Is that what I'm looking for?
Any BMC radio is going to fit in the holes that you have.
Oh, it will.
On the dashboard.
Yeah, it could be a Mini or a Morris Minor or a Midget.
Oh, they're all the same. BMC radio is universal for that genre.
That's what they put in as an option item.
Wow.
Some and dealers put in Motorola radios, but they're the same kind of Motorola dial on it. The only thing you have to know is that because you don't have a whole lot of buttons on there like you will with your Clarion radio, when you turn it on, it'll be on FM. If you want to listen to AM, you turn it off and back on, and now you're on AM.
Wow.
And what I recommend my customers to do is take your buttons, your push buttons, and you can set your FM stations on a push button because the dial's not going to have FM numbers on it. Then if you want to listen to talk radio one day, you turn the radio off, turn it back on, and then manually dial the radio to the AM station you want to listen to. But your tone controls will still work. Your balance control will work. And it's the way to go if you want to keep the dashboard looking original.
All right. Do you do this, Bob? Is this what you do?
No, I don't do it. I send the radios out.
Okay.
But wait a second, and I'll tell you where it's a guy down in Pennsylvania. I may not be able to come up with it quick enough right now, but I can certainly send it to you if you're interested. His name is Mike Hagan, and he's down in Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania. Hagan Radio, Hagan.
Hagan Radio.
Hagan Radio.
Beautiful.
Or Bob, do you want to send me that note? We'll add it to the resource list too?
Sure,
Oh,
I can
great.
do that, Pete.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Well, this radio is not only ugly, but doesn't work. So that's a bad combo. Thank you, Bob. I'll drive by your house. I'll drive by your house and play late 60s music, and we can all dance together.
There you go.
And Bob's quite a dancer too, Bob.
That's what I've heard. That's what I'm hoping for a twofer here.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Or Roy, you want to share what you had regarding that video that you've put together?
Yeah, I can do that if you're ready for that.
Okay. Do people want to see? Roy's got a video he put together. Yeah. Why don't you share? Can you share your screen?
When I finished restoring the car, I had some issues with it, and I even took a ride with Bob Abbott, so he's seen the car. And one of the issues is that when I go for a big bump, I hit a clunk in the back end. So this is a little video on what I did to try to get rid of that clunk. So let me see if I can share this.
And all the bears and things come out of the wood there. You don't want it to be down that end.
Hey, Ted Kiesling, can you put your phone on mute? Thank you.
I am getting down to the. Are you guys seeing this?
Not yet. Are you sharing your screen?
I'm going to have to go back to share screen here. Let me try that. Share screen. Okay, we got share screen. Now I got to go back to here.
And I've got it set up for all, so you should be able to share, Roy.
How about now?
No.
Nothing?
No.
All
you know what, Roy, why don't we do this maybe for the next one? Why don't you, can you send me that video and I'll have it on mine, so we'll be able to do that for next month?
Let me try this one more time here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm clicking on share screen.
Hey, Pete, while he's doing that, can you put that NAPA oil link into the chat window or something, or send that to me?
Sure, I just went onto the NAPA website.
I've been searching for an hour on this site. I can't find it.
Really?
How about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it now, Roy.
Okay. I'm getting down to the last thing that I need to sort out on the Austin-Healey. When we go over a bump, a good-sized bump, there's a clunk in the rear end. And the rear axle is over the top of the frame. The frame is underslung. And the leaf spring, when there's no weight on the car, pulls the axle down tight to the frame. So that I think what happens when we go over a bump, takes the weight off the spring, it slams the axle against the frame. This is a wedge that goes in with about a 2-degree angle on it to set the axle at the right angle. And I found out that the U-bolts that go over this to hold it between the leaf spring and the axle have about 3/4 of an inch of extra length on them. So to increase the distance between the frame and the axle, I've made up a couple of 1/2-inch spacers that I'm going to put in to lower the rear end. The wheels and axle stay the same place relationship to the ground, but putting the block in has the effect of dropping the frame down lower below the axle, which will lower the rear end by 1/2 inch and give me a 1/2 inch extra clearance to the frame from what I have now. To get these blocks, I had to purchase a bar of aluminum, and I bought this from MSC, Industrial Supply Company. And the closest thing I could find to what I needed is it had the 1/2-inch thickness, but it was 2 inches wide. And I needed to cut it down to 1 3/4, as you see here. So in the MSC catalog, there's 2 different sizes, 2 different lengths of the 1/2-inch by 2-inch bar. And one of them is 12 inches, and that was like $56 for 12 inches of bar. And for $46, $10 less, you get 6 feet of it. So I ordered the 6 foot. The freight may have offset the difference, but at least I end up with more stock for my money anyhow. And I was able to rip it down on the table saw to the width and length, and then cross cut it to the length I needed. So now we have 2 of these blocks, and I'll be hitting them on the belt sander just to clean them up a little bit, take the burrs off the edges. And then I'll take a quick film of putting them into the leaf strings and showing the difference we get in clearance. Now that I've fabricated the aluminum blocks to lower the rear end here a little bit, I've got the car up on jacks, and we're going to start to put the blocks in place. The problem is actually happening because the Healey has what's known as an underslung frame. The axle sits on top of the frame instead of below the frame, and there's no clearance. Let me see if I can get a picture of this. Let's see if we can get this picture here. You can see the axle is actually sitting right on top of a rubber pad that's on top of the frame. So when the weight of the car is taken off the axle and springs, the axle comes down and hits right on top of the frame. And you can't really see that on the other side, but we got the same situation going on over there on the other side. Anyhow, that's the problem. And what we're trying to do to cure that problem is to insert, I get in here, get some pictures of it. There we go. I've got the wedge in place, and then on top of that, I've got the aluminum block. And I'm going to, the aluminum block in the bottom is held in place by a pin, but the block on top is not. So I'm going to try to put a little bit of CA glue in on top of that, so that when the clamp is in place, the glue will hold the block to the wedge, and we won't be depending just on the U-bolts to hold it in. So we'll put just a little bit of glue in there, and we'll bring the plate back to where we want it, and then we're going to tighten down the bolts. Okay, we got all the bolts tightened down. As you can see, we got about 1/4 of an inch of thread sticking up out of the U-bolts, and the spacers are in place. Plenty of thread sticking up, and now I'm going to jack up the brake drum and take the weight of the car onto the spring and axle, and we'll see how much clearance we have. Okay, with the axle jacked up and the weight off of the, you can see we've got a lot of space here now between the axle and the frame. So we gained a 1/2 inch. That'll bring the rear end of the car lower by a 1/2 inch, because the axle stays in the same place with the wheels, but the frame actually will be lower by a 1/2 inch than it was before. So looking like we may have cured the problem. When you go over a bump and the rear end of the car goes up in the air a little bit, takes the weight off the springs, it would slap the axle against the frame, made a nasty little crunch sound on it. So hopefully this will fix it. It's Friday, April 9th, 2021, and it's a beautiful day out. I got the Healey down off the jacks, and We can see with the 1/2 inch shim, it doesn't appear that the rear end is too low. The wheel seems pretty nicely centered in the wheel well. Just got back from taking it for a ride. And the good news is no more clunk. Clunk is gone. So I think we finally solved that problem.
Jeez.
So that's that was a success story. I don't know whether the new springs I put in it were stiffer than the original ones or had maybe a little more radius to it. Jacking up one side, of course, doesn't really show you the same thing as when the car is sitting level.
Yeah.
I looked underneath and I've got now about, with the even weight, you can't, anybody who has a Healey knows you can't crawl under there and measure it very well. So it looks like it's about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches clearance to the frame now compared to what I had before. And if that's true, it says I had about 3/4 to 1 inch clearance before. And occasionally with a real heavy bump, I would get it to hit the frame, I think. And it's all gone. I've been over railroad tracks and everything with it now, and it's working fine.
That's great.
I have a comment. Sorry. Yeah. There's a pin in the middle of the spring.
Yes.
And that pin engages in a hole on the bracket on the bottom of the axle. By doing what you've done, you've moved the pin down so far that it's no longer engaged in the hole in the middle of the axle bracket. And when you brake hard, the rear axle will slide backwards and the wheels will jam on the fenders. Very dangerous.
I'm not sure I understand. The aluminum wedge is still engaging the pin.
No, that's right. But the important thing is that the pin is in the hole in the axle bracket. Doesn't matter whether it's in the aluminum, it has to be in the hole in the axle bracket. That's what stops the U-bolts from sliding on the axle.
That pin is nowhere near long enough to get through the wedge into the axle bracket.
Not with that extension on it.
No, even without the extension on it, that pin doesn't reach the axle bracket.
It's the wrong pin. Are those reproduction springs?
Yes.
Yeah, the repro springs, the pin is not long enough. They're very dangerous. They came from AH Spares, I'll bet you.
Yes, I did. I bought them from AH Spares.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I bought them from Ahead for Healey's.
Yeah, well, same maker. You need to take the pin out of those things and manufacture a longer pin so that it will engage in the bracket and the axle. It is actually a very dangerous situation.
Huh.
So you want that pin to go all the way through both that shim that he created as well, all the way up into the bracket, Mike?
It has to protrude about 1/4 inch, at least. The only thing that stops the axle from sliding in the U-bolts.
It's interesting because where I got the idea from was the couple of videos on TV, and they're using these things to lower rear ends on cars all over the place, and they're not putting any holes in them. They're just dropping them down and putting spacers between the axle and the spring.
There are different systems used to locate the springs on the axles in various vehicles, but on a Healey they use that. I think they call it a master peg, the pin that goes through the spring and engages in the axle. This is very important. Take another look at it.
I will. I'm going to crawl under there and see. That pin is that pin pressed in? That was in the axle when I got it, the spring when I got it.
It actually comes out. It's like a bolt with a long head on it. And the head is what protrudes into the axle.
Okay, so you're saying it's threaded.
That's right. It's threaded. It's got a 7/16 nut on it. 7/16 AF, 1/4 thread. Originally, it was BSF.
Okay, and the axle plate has a hole in it that's supposed to go up into.
Exactly.
So if I were to take a piece of threaded rod and go up in there high enough to get into the axle plate.
Yeah, probably need to be a little stronger than a piece of 1/4 inch threaded rod. Originally, it looks like a bullet. It's about, well, like a little tube. It sticks up about, originally maybe about 1/2 inch, but you're going to add another 1/2 inch of that, get through your plate.
Okay.
Okay. Just check it.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks, Roy. I mean, obviously, one solution again. Obviously, you brought something up, Mike, that we probably hadn't thought of earlier. So, thank you for bringing that up.
Right.
I have one other question.
Go ahead, Norm.
What about the Dapper Tom boat pictures that were behind it?
I have a video on that too, if you want.
Very interesting.
I belong to two ship model clubs, the Merrimack Valley Ship Model Club and the U.S. Constitution Ship Model Guild. And yeah, I do enjoy building model ships.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, Roy's quite the craftsman. Absolutely, he's got a beautiful place as well. So, and you can see his car. Roy did that restoration himself. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay, I have a question when you get a chance.
Sure, go ahead, Alan.
What's the opinion on braided brake lines, steel braided brake lines? Is that a thing in the Healey world? I got, I have this little Sprite here, and it's got rubber brake lines. And I've had brake lines blow out on me before, which makes me nervous. Is that a common concern or upgrade?
You have any experience with braided brake lines instead of the rubber hoses?
You're talking about brake hoses, not lines.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, brake hoses. Yeah, to the caliper, right?
Yeah, if you read the driver's handbook, I think, or the workshop manual, it says they need to change those every 5 years, I think it is. They aren't forever parts. So yeah, the braided ones are pretty strong. They're good.
Okay.
Well, past Concours, but they're good.
This car's not going to pass Concord. When I got done with it, it's as soon as they see those seats, they're not. Yeah, I don't think it's no. That's not what this. That's not the purpose of this car. That's for buying a BJ8 for a real Healey, right? And the other question is, how do you know that the engine that they've redone the valve seats for unleaded fuel in a 1275 engine? Like, don't they harden? I was watching this on TV, and they harden the valve seats for unleaded fuel because the lead was used to lubricate.
I think that was more back in the day, Alan. I mean, back when unleaded fuel first came out. Okay.
So it's not an issue. I have no idea because I just bought the car recently. So I don't know if they did that to it or did he, or if it's even required. Do you need to do that nowadays?
Any recommendations from anybody in that regard? Yeah, Alan, I'm just running mine that way. I don't even use any additives or anything like that.
I can tell you what we found. MGBs were really bad for burning valves in the days before unleaded fuel, before they started unleaded fuel. And we were told that we had to change the valve seats and the valves and MGBs to stop them burning valves when you had unleaded fuel. But we never did. And once we got unleaded fuel, MGBs never burned valves.
All right.
Never changed the seats.
Yeah, perfect. I like that idea because it sounds like it's a big job. I mean, these guys, they just did it on one of the car shows. And the guy sent the head to England to get it done. I mean, it's like there's only 4 guys in the world in the universe who know how to do this.
It's a fairly straightforward procedure, I would think, for a automotive machine shop.
Yeah, I guess, because you need some equipment to get it done to be able to do it. But
that's, I think that's been the recommendation, as far as I know, for years, that you really should have that done. Now, how to actually check if yours is that way already, I wouldn't have a clue how you'd actually check it.
You can't tell if it's been done until you pull the head off.
Well, even then, Bob, what would you look for, I guess?
You have to take the valves out, and if they've taken and put a Stellite valve seat in there, you'll see it. It's a little round piece that has the tapers in it, and the valve sits in it and it seats on it.
But could you tell that it was a Stellite steel and seat instead of a regular one?
You could see that the valve seat is not. You could see that there's something there, not just the casting of the head.
Oh, so it's okay. Yeah, I get it.
it's inserted into it.
Got it. Yep.
So you could see with the head off, and you take
Right.
all the valves out. So,
okay.
Alan, I wouldn't worry about it.
I wouldn't worry about it. I've never taken an engine apart and seen the seats have been pounded down in so that the valves were deeper into the head than they should be. So I don't think it's an issue. They said that the lead in the gasoline would give it some lubrication.
Yeah.
And help it stop it from I don't know. It's one of those urban myths that never came to be.
Well, I mean, they just did this recently because I don't know if it's Wheeler Dealers or what I was watching, but so I had no clue that was even a thing. But I'm just hoping for the best. I figured I'd ask the experts, see if anybody.
My engine rebuilder said don't worry about it, but I still use a bed additive to my gas when I can. You can buy an additive.
Okay.
Yeah, you can buy additive, lead additive. Yep. I did initially. I haven't done that in years. But Ted's probably smarter than I am.
I don't think so, Peter.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we close tonight? Rick, anything you'd like to? Go ahead, Rich.
When the cars shipped new from England, did they actually paint the top of the radiator black and the fan shroud red, or is that something that kind of people to spruce up the engine bay did?
No, the red paint was put on with a brush. It's not. It shouldn't be sprayed on. It should be put on with a brush.
And they did that at the factory?
Yep.
What about the radiator, at the top of the radiator?
The rest of the radiators are black.
Yeah. Okay. Did they do it at the Healey plant? They sprayed it black?
Yes. Isn't that right, Mike? Mike, you're on mute.
They made the radiators at Coventry Radiator. They were painted black and installed in the car. And then on the final assembly at the end of the line, there was a little guy with a pot of red paint and a brush, and he used to paint the top of every radiator shroud so that people would put their fingers over the shroud and get the fingertips nipped off when the engine was running. That's what it's for.
And it's red because it's red because of the same idea of the red coats. They wore red coats so you couldn't see the
I had read in one of the books that was a final quality control. That when that was painted red, you knew that it had been checked and everything before it went off the final assembly line.
It was just to save fingertips.
Mike, were you working on the line? How'd you know that?
A lot about that line.
That same guy with the red brush then went around with a little black brush and painted under the rear shroud. He had two jobs.
That's right.
Right, yeah.
That's right. The back of a rear shroud of a big Healey should be flat black.
Yeah, unless it was a union deal, and then they had two separate guys.
Each with a steward.
Rick, anything else you want to add before we close?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Hopefully everyone's doing well. I think it was a very interesting call this evening. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you for all the comments and feedback, and look forward to it. So we'll again, I think it's May 12th is when we'll do it again. So I'll update it on the website and look forward to that. So Neil, did you see, I just went NAPA VR1 2050 racing oil. I Googled that and it came right up.
Yeah, I can find it on Google at a bunch of different places, but not NAPA. For some reason, NAPA's site doesn't bring that up for me, but I'll keep trying. Thanks.
Yeah, I tried it this afternoon, and then it knew where my computer was, and the closest one was in Foxborough, about a mile from the stadium.
Okay.
All
right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Peter. Well done.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey, Peter.
Yes,
Peter.
sir. Yeah.
The Carvels and we had dinner or lunch at the Matunic house the other day.
Oh, nice.